Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege that you've given us to assemble in these council chambers once more. And thank you, God, for your presence among us. Thank you for the citizens who have joined us here out of concern for their community. As we deliberate the business of our city, we pray for your guidance that we might make decisions that are in the best interest of the citizens we serve. And dear God, we thank you for our city administration, our staff and employees who work tirelessly to make our city the best that it can be. And dear God, we reach beyond our city in our prayers to our state, our nation, and really to the world as we work to meet the challenges we face day by day. We pray for strength in the time of problems. We pray for unity in the time of division. And we pray for peace in the time of turmoil. And may those in authority seek solutions that are in the best interest of all the citizens that we serve. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of our February 24th meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
First by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Steele. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes pass unanimously. We've got one item of old business. That item is request consideration of an ordinance to adopt the City of Anderson's new comprehensive plan. Mr. McEwen?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been working on this as under Plan This City for 2.5 years. I've received just great public input over the 2.5 years of drafting the document. You still have a draft before you. And want to turn it over to Maurice McKenzie, our Planning Development Director, who's leading this up for us and through the adoption phase and has worked with the Planning Commission very closely to get it to first reading tonight. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. We had a public hearing regarding this subject at 5:15 this afternoon, and several people that are in the audience tonight attended the public hearing as well. But just to refresh your memory, the comprehensive plan is a document that provides guidance to help shape the future of the community. It gives the city council, it gives the planning commission, staff direction when looking forward to growth and development decisions. South Carolina law does require this document to include 10 components, which includes population, economic development, land use, housing, community facilities, cultural resources, natural resources, transportation, and priority investment and resiliency. And as Mr. McEwen mentioned, we embarked on this process about 2.5 years ago. We had a consultant, Houseville Levine, helping us along the way, and we had an initiative called Plan This City. We obtained significant public input through stakeholder meetings, online opportunities, community forums, just several ways of obtaining input throughout this process, which is important in helping to craft a document such as this. And this document does show the city's goals and action strategies over the next 20 years. And the draft document has been available for public review for 2 to 3 months now. And now, next step to implement the plan, according to South Carolina state law, the Enabling Act, it does say that the Planning Commission must pass a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt the plan. That did take place at their public hearing on February 20th. So in your packet, you will see that signed resolution by the Planning Commission. So that was the first step. And also tonight, like I mentioned, you conducted a public hearing prior to this meeting. So that took place as well. So we're tonight bringing this to you for consideration on first reading.
Thank you, sir. We did have a public meeting, had several people attend. No comments, but I will open it up again to public comment. If anyone would like to come up to the mic and say anything. Just state your name and it's for the record.
Yes, my name is Michael Gardner. I'm representing the Friends of the Electric City Trail. We've provided some feedback on the trail maps that are involved in the comprehensive plan, and I believe there's some, at least in the January publication, there were some inaccuracies. For example, the Whitner Creek Greenway isn't complete or will not be completed by the end of 2025 to connect all the way to the West Side Community Center. It also indicated that there was the East-West Parkway trails extensions were under construction, and those are completed. So that's just a couple examples of some inaccuracies that were in the comprehensive plan. And since there was no publicly available last draft on the internet, and I wasn't able to make it here at the 5 o'clock meeting, I'm assuming those haven't been corrected yet. Thank you.
Thank you, so noted. Anyone else? Any questions from council? Ms. Newton?
Mr. McKenzie, I do think it's important. Can you go over, as you did in the public hearing, about how, particularly as it applies to the sub-areas, how this serves as a framework, not necessarily a final product?
Yes, the sub-areas that we are talking about in the document, it drills down from the overarching vision of the comprehensive plans. We have the East-West Parkway sub-area plan, 2 midtown plans that are north of downtown, then we have one that is southeast of the downtown. Are you speaking regarding the East-West Parkway in particular?
Yeah.
Okay. That sub-area basically lays out the framework for future development potential. This document does not state that the property is being annexed into this zoning classification or has been annexed, nothing like that. It basically lays down a framework for future growth and decisions. As you know, a lot of this land along the East-West Parkway is contiguous to the city, so there are development pressures. So if and when property owners apply to annex into the city, we wanted to make sure that there is that framework in place to make sure that we have guidance in terms of how we want it to develop in the future. You don't want to see a piecemeal and haphazard growth pattern taking place, one piece of property at a time. And use Clemson Boulevard, for instance. You have individual pieces of property with individual curb cuts. They don't work in concert with one another all the time. So by having a comprehensive plan in place, we can focus on connectivity. We can focus on ensuring that aesthetics are consistent throughout. So there's a lot of opportunities along the East-West Parkway, and developing it in a proper manner is of utmost concern for everyone. So we wanted to make sure that even though these properties are not inside the city limits right now, if and when it does come before you, we will have some good guidelines that will help drive your decision making.
Thank you.
And if I may, I want to drill down on that process for each individual parcel. So with that, the city is not going to initiate any sort of zoning or annexation. That comes from the property owner making a request for annexation and zoning of a particular parcel of land. Is that correct?
That is correct. Property owners would apply to the city of Anderson to annex. If they are contiguous to the city limits, we will entertain the potential annexation of the piece of property. So you're correct. None of this has been annexed or zoned. This is a guidebook for the future, but you're right. It's all driven by the property owners coming to the city requesting to annex.
And once they make that request, it goes through the process that we're actually beginning tonight on another parcel of property, where it gets referred to the Planning Commission. There's public hearing from the Planning Commission from community members. Then it comes back to us on first reading with a recommendation from the Planning Commission, where there's, again, public input. And then once it goes through to the second and final reading, that's when it goes into effect.
Yes.
Am I correct in that process?
You are correct. You described that perfectly. And again, the comprehensive plan that we're obtaining input from tonight is our overarching vision for the city. But again, if someone applies for a piece of property to annex into the city, it would be advertised publicly. It would go through the public process with Planning Commission and 2 readings by City Council. And all of those are public meetings.
And again, just to piggyback off what Mr. Newton asked, we are entering into this comprehensive plan, so we have a framework. So if and when this does happen, we're not caught unawares and saying, we're just going to throw this on this, we're going to let so-and-so, who's the landowner, throw this on this parcel, we're going to let this other landowner throw that on that parcel. We want to have a vision that encompasses the needs of our entire community. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And also, I'll add to that, it is a state requirement to have a comprehensive plan and for it to be updated. And so this is the process we've been going through and hired some very good consultants to help us with the process, 2.5-year process in the making. And so here we are on first reading.
Thank you. I just want to make those clarifications
sir.
on the
Thank you.
record for the public.
Thank you. Good comments. Mr. Stewart?
Yeah, Mr. McKenzie, I know Mr. Gardner has been a champion of our bike paths, walkways, greenways. Do you know if those things that he mentioned, have those been corrected?
I will double check. We had a list of corrections being made. They have been made? Okay, they have been made. After the Planning Commission public hearing, there were, several, some were typos, some were things like that, but we made several corrections. So Mr. Strickland mentioned that those have been updated. But we'll double check on all of those. Yep.
I appreciate it. Just want to make sure, as we move forward with second reading and passing this, that everything is reflected, accurately. And I think, as mentioned in the public hearing, I think typically this plan gets updated 5 years, 10 years down the road, but I think, it's going to be looked at very closely by our staff, say in a couple of years, because the city is growing very rapidly and trends could change, drastically or very quickly. And we just want to make sure that, that we update the plan, as situations may arise.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Martinez?
Yeah, I just want to kind of piggyback some of the other comments that have already been made here. This is a fluid document. We put this framework in place based on feedback that we've received. Us as council members, we all bring different skill sets to the table, and probably the best one that we can be is an extension of our voice of our districts. So I really want to make sure that individuals matter and they understand that their comments are important. So as we receive phone calls or we receive emails, please leverage that opportunity to speak. That's how we kind of use that moral compass to be able to disseminate how our districts feel about certain topics. So I appreciate the individuals that are here tonight. That helps us better understand the process. I appreciate anything else that we've got to tighten up on it. Again, it's been 2.5 years in the making, and it's a big project to undertake. So I appreciate the time that's been taken, and I appreciate our council members on the effort that they put into it as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Dr. Thompson?
Maurice, like I said earlier, I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. And last thing was next steps. Do we have begin to have a vision for what, once we achieve what we've got on paper right now?
I guess I was going to ask.
Think about next steps.
Same thing. You might talk a little bit out loud about the UDO.
Right. The next step, again, this provides that guidance that we need moving forward, from a comprehensive standpoint. But our next step is to update all of our regulatory documents. Our zoning ordinance comes first, and it will wrap into our zoning, our subdivision regulations, and other documents that are regulatory in terms of land use. But it will be called the Unified Development Ordinance. We're already underway with our consultants on crafting that language, and we're hoping by the end of the year, first part of next year, we'll have new document in place that is not only more modern, but it also complements this comprehensive plan, which makes it easier to implement.
Thank you. Anything else, guys? Not hearing anything else, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that we pass this on first reading.
Second.
First by Mr. Stewart, second by Dr. Thompson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously on the first reading. Thank you, Ms. McKenzie.
Thank you.
Have 5 items of new business. The first item is request consideration of a referral to the Planning Commission, a petition to annex and zone to PDD, a planned development district, approximately 22 acres, the northern portion of tax map 12100-04-009, located off of East-West Parkway, generally near the Beltline connector. Ms. McEwen.
As the process was just discussed, going over a request such as this, I'll go over it one more time, but it was point on. The item before you on this agenda tonight is in response to a property owner's annexation request. This is for a referral, which is a formality to bring this item before council first before going to the planning commission. Nonetheless, the item will move forward to the planning commission for review. Action tonight does not result in the area being annexed. And also, I think there was some misinformation that was put out there in the public today or yesterday regarding what type of development this is. Let me go over that. The proposed use is for housing, specifically for senior housing. So that is across before you. It's not for commercial purposes or to commercialize the area. It's for housing. With that, Maurice McKenzie can go over some of the details of the request. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. Again, the applicant is requesting to annex the northern portion of the property to PDD, Plan Development District. As you know, the PDD is a document that describes development details for a site. It's written specifically for a particular piece of property. And although approximately 8 acres of the property is slated for multifamily units, the rest of the property is not slated for development at this time, but as Mr. McEwen mentioned, per the comprehensive plan that is to be adopted, the property is slated for residential development of some sort. So, but again, that's what the request is for. The PDD definitely will follow the new comprehensive plan's guidance relating to the East-West Parkway. And again, this is a referral to the Planning Commission. It will go before Planning Commission at their April 15th meeting.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions or comments before he goes to plan? Mr. Steele?
I have a few questions just about the area. Looking at the proposed map, it appears that there's already, I guess, single-family residential on both sides of this parcel. Is that right?
Yes.
And then across the road, there's actually 2 current apartment complexes that are already right there, almost diagonally across the connector from where this is being proposed.
That's correct. You have a mixed-use environment already out there.
Yes, and that goes into my next question. You also have like Sam's Club, Walmart, the Kohl's, Dick's. All of that is kind of right there off Clemson Boulevard where this parcel specifically is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the proposed use for the parcel, as Mr. McEwen noted, is senior housing, is that right?
That's correct. On 8 acres of that property is for senior housing.
Okay, no further questions, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roberts? Then Mr. Stewart?
I thought this might be the appropriate time to mention this, but in the comprehensive plan, there is language spelling out certain parcels that would be designed according to certain design principles, one being the conservation design, which allows for more open space, and the other is low impact development, which has to do with stormwater management. But I want you to know that I'll be an advocate for both of these design principles going forward. If these annexations occur, then I will be an advocate for that.
Ms. Stewart?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. McKenzie, you said this will go before the Planning Commission on April the 15th. I think we have on our package April the 1st.
Yes, that's our typical meeting date, the first Tuesday, but a couple of reasons. We have several items on the agenda. We're still gathering information for some of those items. Also, April 1st falls during spring break, and sometimes it's tough to get a quorum anyway, and we just don't want to see that challenge get in the way of things.
Okay, I just wanted to make.
Yeah, but it is, yeah, April 15th, it will be on a Tuesday, kind of not following the schedule typically, but that is the current scheduled date is April 15th.
All right, just want to make sure
Thanks.
everybody's aware.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, well, it's more of a comment to Mr. McEwen, what he said earlier. You know, we live in a world now where sometimes things can tend to get sensationalized, and they get much larger, especially when they end up on social media. I think it is important for us, again, to my comment before, we really need to have conversations about this. I mean, to think that council was unaware about the sensitivity on the East-West Parkway would be wrong. I think that we understand the sensitivity around that. We're also trying to navigate the process of a growing city. So I think each conversation is warranted. It's important for us to have a good pulse. This is not in my district. So, you know, I don't want to overly weigh in on this topic. But I will mention that
I think this project specifically, as the Planning Commission discusses this, I think it really is a case-by-case situation. I appreciate you outlining further details on that. So, thank you.
Ms. Newton?
That's a good segue, because this would be in my district. I think my fellow council members probably know, just in the past, I don't deal in like hypotheticals when projects come before us. I've never seen a project this far towards the Beltline. Everything else in the past, over the last several years, has been focused more on that Concord Road, East-West Connector corridor, which I think everybody here understands how important that is. I mean, that's an area that, I feel very passionate about kind of protecting, and a lot of it goes to Cox Creek. I mean, we're all aware of, some of the issues that people downstream have faced from Cox Creek. I've met with property owners from Annette and Canebrake to Wilbur and Bradley Park and everything in between. I mean, those are real people who face real issues. So, that's something that I know not only myself, but the entire council's always been very conscientious of is, how do, proposals impact, our residents. Looking here, I mean, obviously, we're going to make the referral to Planning Commission, and it goes to Planning Commission no matter what. That's one thing that sometimes people don't quite understand. But, I look forward to seeing this hammered out a little bit more in Planning Commission. I know that's one thing that, looking here, there's not a lot of details yet. A lot of people don't quite know exactly what, this is going to look like, and I know our Planning Commission is going to do a great job at kind of hammering that out. The only line, there is a line in here that it's a little bit broad right now, but again, I know that's because before it goes to planning, it talks about the remaining acreage, is not planned for development at the present time. In that PDD document, can you kind of explain how we as a council can, how we can restrict certain things in those documents? I think that's one thing, people understand that as hard as it is sometimes to understand zoning, I think one thing people understand a lot less is the PDD documents that we enter into. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Right. I think what will be coming before you as everything gets hammered out, like you said, the 8 acres for the housing that's more imminent than the other piece of property that does not have plans right now. You'll see some more specifics on that. We'll call it phase 1, for instance. Phase 2, which is the remaining, 14 acres or so, we will have language in the PDD document that mirrors the language in the comprehensive plan, just like Mr. Roberts mentioned. It'll have that language in there. Also, we will have a segment in there that states that if and when there's development plans for the property, it must come back before Planning Commission and City Council to review that PDD document for accuracy. So it will probably change again when it comes back. But again, that is a public process. It'll go before Planning Commission, City Council, and the public will be invited to be involved in that process.
Thank you. That's very helpful. With that, Mayor, I'll make the motion to refer this to the Planning Commission.
First by Mr. Newton. Second by Mr. Stewart. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I just think it's important that this council or any future council also realizes the importance of not, I know this plan is going to outline it. It'll be written in the document, but no backslipping. This is a promise we're making as we move forward with this regulation. And like Mr. Newton said, it's semi-vague until we see it, but it's going to the Planning Commission. It'll come back before us. We'll have our public opportunity, but I think it's important that we Mr. Roberts, you and I have talked quite a bit about it. We'll advocate for that because that's important. No matter which direction this goes, we'll advocate for it. So I think it's important to know that it's something we need to stand strong on and support the citizens in their requests.
I agree. This is high-level planning. This is, I've seen it happen all over the state, all over the country. But to engage with a high-level company that does this type of planning all over the country, that has won so many awards for what they do for communities time after time. And I appreciate everybody on council. We spent hours and hours upon our time to make sure that we get a good product. So high-level decisions being made right there about our community's future. Ms. McEwen?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, just wanted to add one more thing too about economic development projects or housing projects, particularly housing projects. They seem to take sometimes the longest. And there's a good chance we'll annex in and this project may not happen. So you go through the process, it may happen quickly, or it could take 4 years, or it could be 8 years down the line if the project does happen. But this is the start of the process, and a builder particularly in the housing area, has to know that they're able to do their project. And they've made that request to us, and you will forward that request to the planning commission. It'll be vetted heavily and then come back to us. So
Good point.
thank you for that.
So we had a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. A second item of new business, request consideration to purchase personal protection equipment for our firefighters. Mr. McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The City of Anderson Fire Department did receive a state grant. I want to thank Representative Don Chapman for his assistance in obtaining the grant for our firefighters. This is to continue the investment into our first-class fire department. It's ranked the highest in the nation as a Class 1 fire department, and we're the only paid fire department in Anderson County, which we're very proud of, and we respond countywide. With that, I'll call Chief Charlie King up to the podium to go over the details of the request. Chief King.
Good evening and thank you. As Mr. McEwen said, this is continuing our efforts to ensure that the 75 firefighters, the men and women that respond to calls every day, continue to have the best equipment to enable them to do their jobs. Each person in the fire department is assigned an individual set of personal protective equipment. What we're discussing tonight is specifically the coat and pants that go along with that ensemble that's built to national standards. NFPA provides those standards. Over the past 90 days, we've had a gear committee, 2 personnel from each shift that has evaluated the gear that we currently have in service with our firefighters, new technology that exists out there, and conducted interviews with those vendors based on the new technology that's in protective clothing today, the serviceability of it, that when we have a rip, a tear, an issue, how quickly can we get it fixed and put back into service. And from that, we were able to have 3 companies that provided us proposals, and these were a little bit different because we knew up front how much money we had to spend, and we told them that. We've got $125,000. Show us the best package that you can put together for that amount of money. And the 3 companies that we felt were able to provide us a high level of service and the safest possible equipment are listed there. From that, AEST, based out of Raleigh, provided us the best possible package, along with they scored the highest on the interviews that were conducted for, again, the technology, the equipment, and the service they were able to provide to it. They're also the vendor that recently was able to provide us with the breathing apparatus that we were able to purchase last year. So they're well known to us, great customer service, and we're accustomed. So again, this equipment will be able to support about half the firefighters in the Anderson Fire Department, and we'll continue to seek both regular fund money and within our budget and any external sources we can to continue that protective clothing replacement in the future. This gear has a 10-year life cycle by the NFPA. The regular wear and tear that our folks see in daily operations, we get 6 to 7 years of use out of it, and our attempt is for each firefighter to have 2 sets of gear. The amount of synthetics that are used in homes and businesses today in furnishings, couches, chairs, bedding, those are high carcinogen producers. When they go into a fire, the dirt, the fumes, the smoke, all the byproducts of that fire that gets into that gear is causing cancer long term. So we want to be able to provide each firefighter a second set, so when they have a fire mid-shift, they're able to pull that gear out of service, decontaminate it, go through a washing, cleaning service that we provide in 2 of our stations, and have a second set so that they're not out of service. So again, this just continues to help us support that program and ensure our folks have good quality clothing to provide a high level of service.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments? Mr. Martinez and then Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, just a quick clarification, Chief. So when we say AEST, we're actually saying not the total cost, but the per set cost was the best option for us.
Yes, sir. We were able to, again, they were the lowest cost per set But knowing we had a $125,000 fund that it was just the best total package, and we were able to get 38 total sets for that money as well. And it was top recommendation of the firefighters.
Well, listen, I trust your leadership, and I'm really proud of our crews and what they do in here in Anderson, so I just want to thank you for what you do.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Stewart?
Just want to kind of echo on what our city manager said. Just really like to thank Representative Don Chapman for, seeing this through the General Assembly. As a former council member, Don was always a very strong advocate for public safety, so just really want to thank him for all he's done for the city of Anderson and for the fire department.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I make a motion we approve.
First by Mr. Steele, second by Mr. John Roberts. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Our next item of old business is request consideration of a resolution authorizing the filing of applications by the City of Anderson with the Federal Transit Administration and Operating Administration of the United States Department of Transportation for federal transportation assistance by 49 U.S.C. Chapter 53, Title 23, United States Code on or other federal statutes administered by the Federal Transit Administration. Ms. McEwen.
Mr. Mayor and Council, for the benefit of the public, I do want to mention that the city owns and manages Electric City Transit. We're very proud. I know the council is very proud of the level of service that we provide and the quality of the buses that we provide to the citizens and our riders. It includes 6 routes, including within the city limits, but also connecting to Honeypath, Belton, Homeland Park, Sandy Springs, Pendleton, and a connection to Clemson. So quite a widespread routes, and we have, and many people depend on the service to get to their workplace and also to get to amenities such as grocery stores and then back to their houses. So very proud of the system we have. This is a compliance administrative document for you that came down from FTA as a request for us to adopt this as a resolution and move this to our database. Elizabeth Willett handles the accounting for our transit and the federal funding that comes with that, and Ms. Willett will go over the details of the request real quick for you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Like he mentioned, this is for your consideration a resolution that the Federal Transit Administration had brought to us. They had recently gone through reviewing compliance documents of their grantees FTA-wide, and this is, if you don't already have it on file with FTA, they just are asking that we present it to our governing body, that nothing changes from our day-to-day operations, personnel, nothing. They just want an acknowledgement from our city council, our governing body, that we do administer 5307 urbanized funding, and that the authorized official, as a separation of duties from our day-to-day finance and operations, our authorized official to submit applications and be accountable for some of the annual reporting is the city manager.
Thank you, Ms. Willett. Questions, comments? Mr. Jeff Roberts, I'm sorry, Ron Roberts, then Mr. Stewart.
Just simply for my clarification, up until this point, we didn't have a policy. Is that correct?
For this document, no, sir.
Okay.
It's kind of, from what we could gather after talking to FTA, we've been in the transit business since, I think 1989 is when transit became a part of the city of Anderson. So it likely is something that in between that time and now that has become an FTA compliance document, that because we were already operating, that it just never came back to be done.
Sure. And this
to be
is
acknowledged.
tied directly to future funding for transit projects.
Right. It is, I mean, everything stays the same. They just want to know that you guys know we operate this way. administer this type
Maybe
of
we
funding.
hadn't checked the box in
Right.
regards to.
Basically, yes.
Sure, as far as funding, the funding's the same. We actually got a slight bump, but that was based on, Mr. Roberts, I know you're on the board, the Anderson, Clemson, Transportation Authority, but the MPO, and through that, there was a negotiation of federal funds, between us and the Clemson transit system, and we got a little bit of a bump of funding there. But this doesn't affect the funding level at all. It stayed the same.
Good.
No,
Good.
state as an
Mr. Stewart?
affirmation that we're following the funding protocol.
Just want clarification. I know it mentioned something about, the applicant, I guess what you does provides all certifications and assurances to the FTA required for this project. What is the project that we're referring to?
The project, this type of funding is urbanized funding. So it basically, we do certifications and assurances for virtually any federal grant that you interact with. And it's things like the applicant, in our case, the city, is registered with the federal government and the system of award management to do business with the federal government, that we do not operate with any vendors that are on the suspended or disbarred list, things like that. They're just very general.
So it's
It's a terminology they use in federal government.
It goes for all grants that we're using, it's just not for one particular project.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It's a federal terminology they always use, saying that they consider it a project, and then we upload our ridership data into their database and the assurances documents and so forth that they require.
Good. Any other questions, comments? And I think too, by transfer to the CAT system, they actually go to Seneca too. But anyway, Jeff?
I was going to move that we adopt this resolution.
Yeah, first by Mr. Jeff Roberts.
Second that.
Second by Dr. Thompson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our fourth item of new business is request consideration of a resolution certifying certain real property in the city of Anderson as an abandoned building site. Ms. McEwen.
This was prepared by the city's legal staff, but Mr. Strickland, Assistant City Manager Andrew Strickland, as this involves an economic development project, we'll just go over this real quick with you. Mr. Strickland.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Mayor, Council, you've seen several of these in the past. This is just a standard abandoned building certification as required by state law. The property owner and developer in this case, to have access to some available tax credits through the state, needs the city council to certify that this particular building was at least 66%, 2/3 abandoned, non-income producing for the last 5 years. So we are providing the certification tonight. The building in question here is the old taxi cab building, the old yellow cab building, at the corner of Main and Calhoun. The property owners have announced PF Meatco is going there, and so they're actively working towards revitalizing that building and making it a contributing structure, contributing project as part of that whole block of revitalization that has been done over the last few years. So very exciting project, and this is just a simple routine thing that we do.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Mr. Stewart?
And you talk about the old taxi cab building down by the new park we just got finished doing?
Yes, sir, yeah.
What happened to the plans that Mr. Wright came back to us with? It's supposed to have been like a restaurant, and he's gonna turn it into, like a dining, I guess, kind of open it up like a restaurant, and.
They sold the property.
With that, when we funded or contributed to that development down there, so now this is a different development that's going in the same building.
This is a different use, slightly different use that's going in that building. The way I understand it, Mr. Wright and his team sold this parcel off right before they started the larger redevelopment project. And so we're here today with a new owner that wants to essentially build and construct and use the property the way that it was originally envisioned. So it's going to have similar indoor-outdoor space. The building is going to be revitalized. I think they're going to keep that retro flair and really lean into the fact that it's an old taxi or an old service station. So essentially, the bones are going to be the same. The use is going to be slightly different. They are proposing, the folks who are going to operate PF Meco are proposing, I believe, a deli component to the butcher shop. So it's going to have a similar use, indoor-outdoor use. It's just good activity and a good revitalization of the building.
Do we think the reality of it this time is going to be a reality instead of kind of like a falsehood that was told to us the first time?
It's always hard to say until it's done. These folks, we've been chatting with them for a long time, and they're very serious about it. They're going to show us plans this week for how they're going to do it. So.
Good. Any other questions, comments?
I think this is an exciting opportunity. I know they've done a great job in Pendleton. That's a great facility they have up there. I know a lot of people who travel from Anderson to Pendleton to visit them. I think it's a great location, beside North Main Commons and the brewery. I think that's a great location for them.
What's the name of the restaurant in Pendleton?
PF Meat.
It was the old post office right there off the square. Doesn't look like a post office anymore. So, good.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we certify that this building is vacant.
Have a first by
I'll second.
Mr. John Roberts, second by Mr. Martinez. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. The last item of new business is request consideration of a resolution in support of a drinking water state revolving fund loan for the replacement and updating of the water lines in the Wellington Mills and East Market Street areas. Mr. McEwen.
This project has been in our utility capital improvement plan and for quite a while, and we're looking to fund the project. We're ready for it, and so this moves that process forward. Our utility director, Mr. Scott Banks, can get over the project and the request for you as well.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. As was stated, the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund has approved the city for a loan in the amount of $3,750,000 for the replacement and updating of the water distribution lines in the Wellington Mills and East Market Street areas. As part of the paperwork process, a resolution has to be made in support of this loan, this supports our strategic goal in assuring sustainable growth by pursuing long-term infrastructure projects and maintaining a reliable water distribution system. And I should have said earlier, council has approved the engineering for this project some time ago. And it's like, as Mr. McEwen said, it's in our capital improvements plan. So now we're coming to you for the funding of that project and the bidding of it. But the funding would be the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund to be paid by the Water Fund. Estimated annual payments are $234,096 at 2.3% interest for a period of 20 years. With that said, staff recommends approval of the resolution in your packet supporting the SRF loan for these two projects.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Any comments, questions? We have talked about this this last week at our council retreat, but go ahead, Mr. Martinez.
Just a quick question on that. What drives that 2.3% rate? Does that have anything to do with our bond rating, or is that just a standard rate that the...
That's the SRF loan rate, and right now for both drinking water and clean water, which is the sewer side of things, it's a 2.3%. Now, if you're a smaller utility, or sometimes if it's a green infrastructure type, there are different rates, but for the category that this project fits in, it's 2.3% is what it is.
Good. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart?
Could you tell me on East Market Street, because that's the area I represent, from what point of East Market Street to what point this improvement project's going to go on, so I can share that with the community?
I can get you that map, and it's
That's fine, you can get it to me.
okay, it's quite a few feet. It's mainly replacing 6-inch and replacing 2-inch lines, and also extending those 2-inch lines. The 6-inch were made are cast iron, unlined, and then the 2-inch are galvanized unlined as well. And so this is to replace those or extends, because a lot of time, unfortunately, some of those lines are dead-end lines. We'll be extending them so that they connect together so that we have better flow and quality.
I know on the end closest to Gossett Street, I know there's a lot of houses where the water lines are kind of up in the yard a long way behind it. Is this going to extend it out to the curb so we know where we're responsible for versus the property owner?
Yes, sir. And if I don't think there are too many in the back of houses, but if they are, then we'll bring those to the front, and we'll bring the meters to the front where it's more like what our normal practice is.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys?
You know, we've talked a lot about develop on the north side of town. It's good to see some of it, improvements coming to the east side as well. I think it highlights this meeting, really the ways that we as council are trying to help our entire city thrive and improve and be ready for the challenges that we're going to face in the future. So with that, I'd make a motion that we approve this.
Second that.
I have a first by Mr. Steele, second by Dr. Thompson, and I would agree. I mean, there's certain pockets in our city that need more attention than others, and from abandoned homes and so forth. And so everybody deserves clean water. So.
And Mayor, while we're talking about water lines and stuff, I do want to commend Mr. McHugh and his staff about the Main Street water line project and the communication. That's been huge. I mean, I've heard very positive feedback. I mean, those are going to be some. There are going to be some challenges with that. I mean, that's a huge project to undertake. That's a hard area to work in. But I've heard great feedback on the communication methods you and your team use, and I think that's going to go a long way.
Yes, sir, thank you. And just to expand on that for just a second, if you are interested in that project or it directly impacts you, we have communicated out. Also, there's a website, project website on that, on the City of Anderson website. You can sign up for text alerts and also emails as well to get updates.
Good comments. I had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn, ladies and gentlemen.
Make a motion.
First by Mr. Steele, second by Mr. Stewart. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.
Scott.
At least next year.